Very long and involved question, eh? Who has sent it?
It's a youngster from Kababir.
A youngster.
Safat Sroor.
Right. Yes.
He said, Hazrat, there is a promise in the Holy Quran that Allah will give supremacy to believers, and when I do preaching to some non-Ahmadi Muslims, I relate this verse of the Holy Quran to them, and they draw the conclusions themselves that when I asked them about the bad condition of the Muslims today, they said that because Muslim, they are far away from the real teaching of Islam, this is why this promise does not apply on them.
Use the word asfar safilin.
Yes.
For them.
Yes. Yes, Hana.
Yes.
He said, yes. He said why they are in the lowest levels nowadays. And then he said that they draw the conclusion that because they are far away from the teaching of Islam. He said once they have reached this conclusion, how can I convince them that the only way for them to be saved is to join the Jamaat of Hazrat Imam Mahdi alayhi salam?
First of all, the promise of Antumul Alam. This is a promise which is being carried out throughout the world, without fail, without exception. The anti-Ahmadi ulama are trying their best efforts, making their best efforts to stop the passage of Ahmadiyya, to hinder it from growing further and wider. Where have they succeeded? Show me one country, one place. Nowhere. Ahmadiyya is marching forward with full glory everywhere in the world against not only the so-called ulama, but also against Christian priests and Jewish elders and whoever you call them, and Hindu pandits. Whoever has attempted to stop the passage of Ahmadiyya, his efforts have been frustrated by God. The atheists have not been able to do so either. So there is not a question of any single religion. It is a question of the entire world. And the promise of Antumul Alan is against the whole world. So as such, this promise in itself is being fulfilled in such a glorious way that if he does not have any other proof of the truth of Ahmadiyya, he can remind the non-Ahmadi Muslims with whom he discusses Ahmadiyya of this universal evidence, and he can challenge them to prove it false. They can't. It's impossible for anyone to prove this promise false in its application to Ahmadis. But in its application to all other sects of Islam and all other people in the world, this promise is not manifested by God. All the efforts to spread their faith are carried out in a manner that whenever there is true resistance against them by Ahmadis, they always fail. So this shows Al-Alan are Ahmadis. As long as they are not confronted with Ahmadis, they may spread the message. But the moment they feel they confront the opposition by Ahmadiyyat, they are Safilin and Ahmadis are Alan. So this is a challenge to the entire world. And if anyone can effectively handle this argument, I think any sane person with a sense of fear of God would accept it as a great sign of the truth of Ahmadiyya. as far as the word Safilin is concerned, it's very difficult to call Muslims as a whole Safilin. I don't like that application. But the scholars, they are forward scholars who have taken up into their own hands the hostilities they unleash against Ahmadiyyat. They are the leaders of opposition. Of them, it is the prophecy of the Holy Prophet himself that they would be Asfalin, Asfal Safilin, because the Holy Prophet ﷺ prophesied that وَعُلَمَاؤُهُمْ شَرُّ مَنْ تَحْتَ عَدِيمِ السَّمَاءِ, the worst under the firmament of heaven. So, what more evidence can you find in favor of the word Asfal Safilin being applicable to them? What is lower than a Asfal Safilin? And this is the tradition of the Holy Prophet, exactly applicable. وَعُلَمَاؤُهُمْ شَرُّ مَنْ تَحْتَ عَدِيمِ السَّمَاءِ. So again, these are not my words. I don't like them to use against Muslims as such, and they are not used as against Muslims as such. Muslims can never be Asfal Safilin. Even when they have moved away from the fundamentals of Islam to a large degree, still it is not possible for us to believe that God would condemn them as Asfal Safilin. But their leaders who choose to oppose Ahmadiyyat, they can become Asfal Safilin, and according to this tradition, these are the people who would be the Asfal Safilin, their religious leadership. That of their religious leadership who take it into their own hand to oppose and destroy Ahmadiyyat.